Hi everyone, and welcome to part 2 of this week's Look Finance SEQFC Preview Show, with thanks to our friends at Vilic Law. I'm Darren Lutton, and we've got our usual guests this week. We've got Brett Budwee. G'day, Brett, coach of Palm Beach.
How you going?
Very well, thank you. We've got Mark Madge from Gold Coast Football. Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
Good. And our special guest this week is the senior coach of the Robina team, Nathan Mulhearn. Nathan, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you on board. Now, let's get started with you. You've had a massive win on the weekend with 5-3 over Burleigh Bulldogs. Tell us about the game.
Oh, yeah, look, it was a good game, I thought. I think the first half was a really good competitive game. We've gone in 2-1 up, which was, deserved, I believe, in the way we played in the first half. One of our boys scored a cracking bicycle kick just before half-time, which had us up at half-time. We were feeling good. We spoke about the things we need to do second half. As a coach, you tell the players, you say, look, go out. They're going to come out fired up, and we want to make sure that we don't concede early, ride the wave, and then go. They came out and scored within 30 seconds. So there goes that talk. And then they just sort of came at us for the next 15 minutes, and we just struggled to deal with their threats. We still created a few chances in that time, which we probably should have taken, which may have changed things. But then we started to get back on the ball a little bit, scored the third goal from a corner. And then, it opened up a little bit. They had a couple of sin bins, and as well as, they were going for the game. So it opened up a little bit, and we got the result, which is probably the most important thing. Given we had a few players out on the weekends, the boys that came in did an exceptional job, and, will give me a headache in the coming weeks, selection headaches.
So we get to the post-game interviews, and you were up first, and it was great to see a coach with a massive smile on his face. You were so excited about getting the win. And then we saw Philo afterwards, and things went a bit crazy. Mark, I'll let you take over the story here.
I mean, I think everyone's probably pretty much seen it now on the Gold Coast. With Philo's post-match interview, look, it was probably one of the best ones I've done. Obviously, it's pretty obvious why. Philo always gives you everything he's got. He's the easiest person to interview in that capacity because you don't have to ask many questions. He will go on his on a roll, and on a roll he did go. Obviously, we did. There's some technical difficulties midway through the interview, which resulted in a bit of it being removed because of obviously some issues we had. But nevertheless, we got 6 minutes of pure, honest. I guess the number one word is he basically told everyone how he felt. And that's what we love about Phil. I think everyone appreciates that more about him than anything. He did feel that way. That's how he still feels. I don't think he would regret anything he said, really. But, the Gold Coast Premier League, the way it is and the way we are on the Gold Coast and coaches are, they've been doing it for a long time, and these things happen, and it's good. I think some emotion's good in the game. I think, that spark might be something that his team looks back and goes, okay, he's not messing around, he's serious. And again, could be a spark for Robina as well, saying, all right, if you don't want us to make the top 4, which is obviously fair enough, and you've made it public, we'll go out now and see if we can trouble you and get that 4th spot off you, as Narang will probably do the same. So, I think it's just, overall, I think it's great, good for the game. I'll leave it at that. That was my thoughts anyway.
Distill what he said into a couple of points.
Fantastic viewing, best interview you'd probably have, raw emotion, and easiest way to sum it up.
He snapped, didn't he? At one point, and he sort of just changed on him. The medication didn't kick in or what, and then he just sort of went off on a tangent, and I don't know. I actually think Robina have done what they need to do to stay up into the Premier League, and whatever it takes, sort of thing. Like I'm on Nathan's side in this.
So, Nathan, I think one of the accusations was that you're throwing money at players. Anyone that becomes available, you're just chucking cash at them to get them on board. How do you respond to that, sir?
Well, look, the response is that's not true. There are some boys picking up some coin, and it's not as much as people think. And I suppose that's between the players and the club. I think what you'll find is Robina's a club over the last few years who've built their player numbers, their resources through good hard work, good people. They're organised, and they're ambitious. They want to be a club that, develops players. They want to be a club that has a good senior program. All the while in doing that, though, keeping junior fees low. So it's not about, where the money's coming from and those types of things. We were successful last year. We had a good year. We had good revenue coming in. We had a couple of semi-finals, a game on the end of the season that, was to win the league, which was well attended. So the senior program last year generated, the money to be able to do what we've done this year. I don't know if you know, Darren, but Robina hadn't won a game in 2.5 years before last year. So the boys that came in with myself, we went about changing the culture, making things better. We did that. So there was no money spent on players last year. It's just is what it is. As Brett said, you've got to come in and you can't just survive. People talk about surviving. We didn't want to just survive. We wanted to be mid-table pushing for the 4. And at this point, we're there. So we think we've done an okay job. Job's not finished. We've grown as the season's come in. We've had to build twice because of COVID. So new players that have come in basically after COVID, after players that we had. We've used 40 players in the first team this year, which I know a lot of teams have done similar, but, that's a massive number. Last year I was probably lucky to use 20. I think that's one of the things Philo has a saying as well, and everyone loves Philo, and I love Philo. What he said on the weekend, doesn't change a thing. He came in and told me straight after the game. He said, "Look, I've unloaded. I was angry at everyone. I've unloaded at everyone." He probably didn't unload at everyone. We probably copped the brunt of it. But Philo's saying his players sign players. So we went hard after a couple of players early. Pre-COVID, before the season started, we got them really late. But then as they've come in over time, players they've played with in the past have contacted and said, "Look, not happy where I am. I'm, looking for a new club." And then that's sort of when the club and I get involved after that person's already contacted the club and said, "Look, I'm looking for something new." And that's taking a bit of Philo's advice on board there. So, yeah, I get his frustrations and I understand that. I think maybe it was a little bit harsh and maybe took away from a little bit from our performance on the weekend.
I'd like to add, I'll chime in something there, and this is coming from someone who's not involved in clubland, and I think it's my number 2 pet hates I have is, one, people that deny paying players and are afraid of admitting the truth. And this has happened for years and years and years on the Gold Coast that I've seen, probably years before I was even born, this was happening on the Gold Coast. My thought process, and I'm going to add specifically in the Robina thing, just because obviously it's the conversation topic right now and it's pretty clear. Their sponsorship as a club is record numbers this year. From what I gathered and speaking to the club people, it's going to be even more next year. So them as a club have done fantastic groundwork in the background to get to where they are today, to get the sponsorship to where it is today, to have the ability to pay players per se and build a squad. Instead of process is, instead of looking at them saying, "How dare you pay players? You guys do this, you guys are that. That's why they're better." Why don't we try and achieve every club to be as financial, every club to be as sustainable moving forward? I think Palm Beach, I might be talking out of context here, but Brett's here anyway, is after the NPL, they went through a couple of years there trying to rebuild the club, trying to rebuild those financial stocks and build it back up to where they can be in a position maybe next year or in years to come to be able to spend some money and improve the playing squad if that's the option they want to do. And that shouldn't be criticised by anyone in that capacity. And, in certain situations, people might be in a better position at their clubs to pay and some might be not. And maybe next year, I don't think it'll be likely, but God forbid, Nathan's club might be in a position where they don't have the money, but Philo's club might have exuberance amount of money, or you might change clubs. So the whole notion of paying players is such a taboo thing and so bad about it. I don't like that part. I think if a club wants to pay and deem that valuable for a player, pay him all you like. So I thought I'd just add that 2 cents in there.
For sure. All right, so Nathan, is this the beginning of a beautiful rivalry?
Oh, look, I wouldn't go that far. I think, it is what it is. With so few clubs on the coast, I think there are those rivalries anyway, and they develop for different reasons over different times. Who knows what next year holds? I plan to be at Robina next year. Maybe it is. So we've played Burleigh twice this year. So whether we play them next year, whether Philo's there, I'm not sure what the inner workings are there. Look, I think it's good to have those rivalries, but I think obviously there is that respect there. Everyone respects Philo for the time he's spent in the game and the things he's done at Burleigh and at some other places too.
And sorry, Darren, I bet you find in a couple of years at swings and roundabouts, Burleigh will have, Justin Mackay, Sam Smith, these sort of players playing for him, and then the shoe will be on the foot, so it all works in like sync sort of thing, 7-year cycles.
Definitely. All right, so let's move on to your game, Brett. And the reason I bring up rivalries is because we saw a couple of days beforehand the rallying call from Surfers Paradise to get people to come to the game, and we saw a shark in a tutu. And the social media response from Palm Beach with the School of Sharks trying to encourage everyone to get to the game. It was a fantastic build-up, and it was so simple as well. Did it have the desired result, Brett, and was the game packed on the weekend?
Yeah, look, like I've said before, sometimes it's hard for me to tell what's behind me, but, the noise was unbelievable. Mark was sat in the middle, in between the two benches. And, in my opinion, it was probably 4-1, 5-1 Palm Beach supporters.
Easy.
It would have been our best away crowd for a long, long time. They were a little bit vocal, sometimes a bit stupid, but you get that. They heckle me, they heckle my players, they heckle the opposition, they heckle everyone, mate. But we enjoy the atmosphere, and it was a proper finals type game. I think Alex said it. Surfers probably had the better opportunities, but we probably played the better football. But we had 2 tough games in a row, Coomera and Surface, and we didn't lose there. You know what I mean? So we took away positives from both those games. Now we just got to face Philo.
The game was, of course, a 1-1 draw, which keeps that battle at the top of the table extremely tight. Mark, you were there. What was your take?
First 3 minutes, I thought we were going to be 5-5, 6-5. I thought my prediction of free flowing would happen because it was 1-1 after 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the game, there was again a couple of chances here and there, but just fizzled out. Look, at the end of the day, I think I said this to both coaches. For me, it looked like both were scared to lose the game rather than go out and try win the game on the ascendancy. A point for both in both situations. Brett would have probably taken a point before the game, to knowing that his 3 games, he'll feel confident in those last 3, probably more so than Alex, who's still got to Coomera on the final day. So that might be a last-minute trek and last-minute, change of things. Brett will feel obviously confident. Obviously, Nathan's here as well. Robina go to his home ground in the final day of the season. So when you're at home, especially Palm Beach's home form, you're confident. And then obviously Burleigh coming there as well, pretty much the same thing. So I think Surfers are happy with a point to go into the last 3 games on top and know it's in their hands still. Palm Beach will feel much the same, not losing that game, going 4 points behind with 3 games to go. Then, Surfers can even slip a game. Can they slip 2 losses in a row? It can happen, but obviously in this position, everyone's still got everything to play for. The most important part now, I think I said this weeks ago, is the Burleigh scenario. Burleigh are now, if Burleigh had won that game against Robina, their gap would have been a bit further out, and they, the must-win attitude wouldn't be emphasised as it is now. Because they have to play both Palm Beach and Surface back-to-back weeks, and the Robina are right there, and Narang are right there as well, as a matter of fact. So those games are going to be finals type I think, for the remainder of the season. You know, Brett's again got all three teams there who are vying for one spot. You know, I think it's Burleigh, Nerang, and Robina. So every game is just going to be massive in the final 3 weeks. The beauty of it all is, I guess, we have a week off to relax and think it through. But yeah, the top of the table, 1-1, fair result, I'd say, overall, considering the circumstances.
Mark, Darren, it did seem like it was a bit, both teams were scared to lose there at the end of the game, especially. It was pretty tense. And it was probably the thing that kept me up most at night, Darren, on the Saturday night, was did I make the right decisions when I took off an attacking player and put on an attacking player? You know, could I have taken off a defender and gone for the win sort of thing? But I think at the end of it that we made the right decisions anyway. So the draw was good.
The other two results on the weekend, Coomera overcoming Southport 1-0 and Nerang, a massive 5-0 win over Broadbeach. Mark, anything to add on those games?
I was at the Sunday game, so I'll comment on that one first. Obviously, it was very, Southport can only look at themselves at this situation and go, missed opportunities. They had a disallowed goal there in the first half, might have changed the flow of the game. They also missed a penalty at 0-0. Coomera, at the end of the day, as Steve McDonald said in his post-match interview, was all about getting 3 points. That's what they did. At the end of the day, they scored the goal to get to 3 points. A long throw, and one of the shortest guys on the pitch winning a header and scoring a goal. You can't be happy as that as a coach. So it's a coach killer. Again, Southport lost a player as well for some bad language midway through the second half. Just when the ball's not rolling your way, things like that can sort of happen and does happen. But again, just missed opportunities. Coomera get the 3 points. They might be in a situation, in a week or so that they might not be able to drop lower than third or higher than third. So that could play a part to play, especially going into the final round against Surface. You don't know what could happen. Hopefully Enrique will be back for them. I'm hoping that, for their sake, he'll be back. The Nerang game, it seems like Nerang were just in control from the start. Again, I think Broadbeach played with 10. I don't know when that red card was issued, but there was obviously a red in that game as well. And they didn't want to leave anything to chance after their first round of games when they obviously won the last kick and just get that win to put that pressure on that final game. And they were probably happy with Robina getting the win at the end of the day because it keeps them 3 points from Burleigh, 2 points from Robina. So, again, two results that could have been very different and could have resulted in our league table being a bit more scattered. But what we love is everything to play for in the coming weeks. So,
Nathan, at the club, how important is coming fourth?
Well, it'd be massive, Darren, to come up from the Coast League, come from where the club has been to finish fourth. That'd be massive. I think, given the start we'd had, the first round we only won 2 games. That would be a huge achievement. So we just want to keep playing well and working hard, and hopefully those results come. I mean, we've got Nerang next, which will be massive. I think not the end if we lose, but I think if we win that, we put ourselves in with a good chance of getting there before we play Coomera and Palmy. In the end, we've got some good players who they want to play finals. They just want to play for as long as they can, keep the season going as long as they can.
You are, of course, the Sunday game. So you are at home. So Robina Commonfield 1. Just love the name of that ground. Commonfield 1. With Nerang, they're a couple of points behind you. A draw wouldn't be too bad a result, though, would it?
I suppose that all depends on what happened on the Saturday with Burleigh, and I think they've got Palm Beach or Surface. I can't remember which one they've got. Yeah, so that would all depend on the Saturday. So it will be nice to know, but I mean, I don't think anyone goes out to draw a game in the Gold Coast Premier League, to be honest. We'll sometimes take the point afterwards, but hey, what are we losing if we get beat trying to go for the win? I think that's my philosophy. Yeah, in the last 10 minutes of a game, if you're under the pump and you need to hold on, then that changes. But I think we go out to win every game, and the other coaches are the same. I was at Coomera Southport on Sunday, and I suppose the only thing to ask, and maybe this is for Mark to take back to Football Gold Coast, is why are we playing at 3 o'clock in October? You know, we wouldn't play at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in March. You know, watching that game, watching the players, I thought both teams would have, you know, played better had it been a bit cooler. And I suppose it's the question that the A-League often has about playing in summer. You know, why are you playing in the afternoon when it's still sun? If, you know, you wait a couple of hours, sun goes away and it can be a bit cooler. So, you know, hopefully for a drizzly afternoon of 21.
It's interesting because we do find in a lot of the football Brisbane games that the feature game starts at 6:30, 7:30. And here it seems to be that 6 o'clock is the ceiling.
Sundays on the Gold Coast, for some reason, people don't like to play late kickoff. I've said this year in, year on out. I don't see a point in having a 3 o'clock Sunday. I'd rather it a night Sunday, but people got to go to work the next day and whatever else. They're the excuses that we've been given for years upon years upon years. I like Friday night football as well. So that's my, you know, at the moment we're trying to work out from Football Gold Coast perspective the finals and how that time frame looks like, because again, as it stands, you know, you have reserves and firsts at the start of November. If you're going to have 2 games on a Saturday of finals football, when do you kick off both games? You can't kick off a Premier League second versus third at 3 p.m. and then a 1 versus 4 at 7 p.m. because it's just 3 o'clock, you'll kill people. And worse, 12:45 is even worse. Imagine Resi's now even coming at 12:45 is a killer. So you know, I'm open with it. I've said, why don't we try put one of the games on a Friday night as a feature game for the Premier League and a Saturday night, or Saturday night and Sunday very late afternoon, because we'll only get the best result out of that moving forward, rather than the heat. You don't want. We have enough. I'm not going to elaborate too much. We have enough factors on the Gold Coast that can determine games, pitch conditions, so on and so forth. We don't need another factor with heat to influence a game. That's the last of our thoughts. So I agree. I agree. I couldn't agree more. Sunday games are obviously the worst to watch, worst to play, I'm sure, for the players.
The only thing about Friday night, Marks, is that the players work, you know what I mean? So we're amateur footballers. Like some of my players are up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Then if we kick off at 8 o'clock at night or whatever on the Friday, I'm asking them to work harder. And it's just not possible sometimes, you know, like the game against Southport, the catch-up game for us, killed us. It was a Tuesday night kickoff, 8 o'clock. You know, we've got a wet weather weekend this weekend, but no games on. But we were forced to play that game at 8:30 on a Tuesday night, you know. So I don't particularly like the night games.
There you go.
All right. So let's turn our attention now to the Coast League. And Mark, we've got our champions, and things again really tight.
Yeah, Kingscliff obviously getting the win against Musgrave down. The highlights were up. They scored an absolute cracker goal there to seal the deal, and obviously a mistake from Musgrave in the first for the first goal. Mistakes change games, especially in Coast League. That momentum swing, as Nathan knows as well. Once you get on top, it's sometimes pretty hard to get back into games, especially in those 1 versus 2 games. But again, Kingscliff, they haven't lost all year, as haven't Musgrave, but they're the champs. They move on. You know, and I guess both are coming up. So I'm sure both will need to add a lot of pieces to be able to come up into the top, into our Premier League and compete at a good level. Both, I think, are well aware of that. And then obviously the story of the Coast League is obviously Railway Base securing 3rd spot. This is a team full of 16, 17-year-olds. How they've gotten to this position, it just seems like it's a good bunch of boys that, you know, from what I hear, they get 40 to training, 45 to training, because they're all kids. So they all come, they all train, they all band together. I couldn't tell you how many messages I've received and people asking me in ground saying, we'll remember what you said, that 3rd won't be able to beat 8th. I've even put some little side bets on with some of the people regarding, I have to stick by what I've said now, and I'm not going to change that. I don't think 8th will go down. So I've had to back it up with some friendly bets here with some cartons of beer and so on and so forth. But, you know, it was a great experience for that side. Speaking to their head coach, who's only 23 years old, Nathan Jones, he didn't expect them to be in this position. They come through a year or two earlier than expected. But while he's here, he's said now we've got to go for it. One thing probably a lot of, to Nathan and Brett can add here as well. Broadbeach, apart from the last 2 weeks, and I know it's only their most recent game that matters, but have been quite defensively structured and very good at the back defensively. Their issue's been in front of goals, scoring goals. In a playoff scenario over 2 legs, when you are supposed to be the better team and supposed to be the favourite, you need to make sure you get on top early and score goals. These kids won't back away. These kids won't drop their heads because at the end of the day, they're just having fun running around. You've got to get on top early in these playoff games. So I think if they can't fix their goal-scoring form heading into the final weeks, if it is Broadbeach for that matter, and Southport as well, in that capacity where they've got to get on the score sheets more often to be able to come through and give themselves, and show why they are the Premier League teams and get the job done.
Just on Broadbeach, I think that the fact that they're playing Premier League teams week in, week out, you know what I mean, and then they're going to come up against the Coast League one, and traditionally it's a little bit slower, not as intense maybe. I just think that conditioning might hold Broadbeach in good place. We played Runaway Bay in the pre-season. I think the reason they got promoted is because they're quick. They got speedy wingers. They got good midfield, you know what I mean, which counts a lot in the Coast League. If you've got a couple quick wingers, which they do have, but hats off to them. They've done a good job.
Nathan, do you have something to add there?
Yeah. Look, Runaway Bay, obviously that's exciting for them, and whatever they get out of it will be of benefit, in the coming years. I think that's, Broadbeach with Danny Morton, Justin Watmo, those 2 players alone and some of the other more experienced players that they've got, that might just be the thing that gets them over the line. If they're there, they're only 2 wins away from not being in that spot. So,
Southport as well. So.
Yes. Yeah. So I believe we're safe now, I think.
I think you are officially. Yeah,
That's the main goal, Nathan. The first goal of the season.
Safety.
All right, we might wrap up the show there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. But just before we go, we've got one more question for you guys. What would you say are the 3 biggest rivalries in the Gold Coast leagues?
Palm Beach, Broadbeach.
Yeah.
I think of recent years, I think Surface Burley is a good one, to be honest. I'll give him that. Even just thinking back before Burley, with still with Philo, and Surface had their good teams with Chappie and all the rest of it. So I'll give Surface Burley, Palm Beach, Broadbeach.
Nerang versus Southport used to be a good rivalry, Nathan, back in the day when they were both.
Yeah, it used to be a battle. I'd say that one. Also, you've got some of your ones like
Southport Musgrave.
Southport Musgrave.
There we go.
Yeah. Southport Musgrave, they've all grown up together, those guys in that sort of corridor. They've probably played for both clubs sort of thing. And, yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good one.
Palm Beach and anyone, I think.
That's right.
It seems like that. It seems like Palm Beach versus anyone. Actually, can I throw a question in there, Darren, to the 2 at least? I'd just like to hear this one.
Go for it.
Obviously, MVP is going down. We won't release who is there, but it's very, very close. I can tell you that from my perspective. So in your opinion, guys, taking your players out of it, because obviously for obvious bias, can you give me a top 3 MVP candidates for this year?
Nathan.
Yeah, thanks, mate. do I just say all the players that I'm going to be hiding under their beds in the off season, or?
Oh, stop doing that, mate.
Look, I think there's a few good players. I suppose Fui, your Japanese boy, he's had a good season and been, a big part of what you guys have done this year. Surface have got 11, 12 good players. Maybe 15, I don't know. But, obviously Buddha, Dylan Barwick, he's always a big part of what they do. And then, Burley have got players like Matty Hilton and that sort of thing. Whether he's scored as many goals as he has in other seasons, maybe not. It is a shortened season. Yeah, a lot of players haven't played big game, like lots of games, so it's hard to sort of really have a standout for me.
Brett?
Probably for me, Buddha at Surface Paradise. Alex uses him in various positions and he handles it pretty well. I think Curtis has done really well for Nathan. He's played in a few positions as well, and he loses his head sometimes, but he always gives 100%.
He just plays in one position, Bretto. I can't keep him there.
Whatever he wants. And Narang have got some good young lads that have come through, but I think Brad Scott's played pretty well this year as well for Surface. I think it's only his first or second year in senior football. He's done quite well. So probably those.
All I'm going to say is, out of all, there's only one person in the top three. I'll leave it at that. So it's a good position to leave us in, I think.
Don't tell me Justin Barwick's in the top three. Is in.
I'll leave it at that. Over to you, Darren.
The show.
All right. And of course, SEQFC will be starting their awards next week, which we do as a public vote. And Gold Coast League Player of the Year will be one of the categories. So if Football Gold Coast get it wrong, you'll have an opportunity to put things right. All right. So, Nathan Mulhearn, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great to have you on board. And Mark and Brett, as per usual, thank you again.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate it.
This is the Look Finance SEQFC Preview Show with thanks to Vilic Law. We will see you next week.